Vishwahir Ahuja joining in right now. Welcome to the show, sir. Sir, our first question is, assuming that the real economy grows at around 2% and credit growth for the system is around 6%, private banks should be able to grow at least twice that, or at around 12%. So what are RBL's growth ambitions and where will the demand really come from?
Commentary, we have said very clearly that, there are two aspects to what is going on. One is how we have performed so far, and then the other is what is the outlook going into the future. And I think it is very clear that it all depends on the kind of scenarios that unfold. And I think the whole world is talking about a very optimistic scenario, a so-called base case scenario, and a worst case scenario. Let's not talk about the more optimistic scenario, which might imply that, this lockdown, which is there till April 15th, will come to an end, and, we will have this coronavirus situation under control. It doesn't seem that we are going in that direction. It does seem that it's going to last certainly a bit longer, and perhaps into May, and that life may start limping back to normal by end of June. That is the scenario that, I feel and we feel is the more likely scenario at this moment. Of course, it's an evolving situation. Things can even get worse from here, as we all appreciate. And therefore, any judgment we make in terms of the future has to be somewhat, if I may say, said with a cautious note. So that's the first thing. That having been said, I think on our base case scenario, we have said that, the businesses that we are in are such that, they can be leveraged in such a way that as the consumption demand comes back, and there is a lot of pent-up demand out there, then the businesses that we are in have the potential to then once again bounce back and grow nicely. And again, just to clarify, I think the card business, the micro banking business, and some of the other businesses that we have in terms, and also on the wholesale side. So broadly on the wholesale side, we are in a phase of continued consolidation, as we have said time and again. And we have been debulking our portfolio, making it, improving the rating profile of the portfolio. And I think this exercise kind of started several months ago as we experienced a little corporate stress that we have now pretty much absorbed, and we are moving on from there. So that having been done, I think the whole idea is that the wholesale business going forward should be very tightly run, should be run to much stronger financial metrics, both in terms of return and in terms of asset quality. So we have never doubted our client selection and risk management processes. I think the very few handful of cases where we were affected were as a result of the larger circumstances in the economy, which have impacted, certain companies and certain groups. But having said that, I think that's a decent sized business that we have, which can produce decent sized returns. But certainly that is not a space which is a high growth area for the bank at this moment, nor would I like to make any growth predictions out there. I think that is something that will evolve. As far as the other businesses are concerned, you would have noticed that proportionately our emphasis on the retail businesses, which have been growing very nicely and producing, very good returns, have not only performed very well, but that is where the growth potential lies even in the future. So that's the way I would respond to your question, that it all depends on the timing. For the time being, obviously, in April, May, so-called getting into June, there is no possibility of growth in any business. And it's only once things normalize that we feel that in our card business, in our microbanking business, in our other retail businesses, there is significant growth potential sitting there.
All right, Mr. Ahuja. And coming to the subject of deposits, we're told a consortium of private bankers met with the Maharashtra government last week. Do you know anything about that, and what are the key takeaways from there?
We were not part of, the fact of the matter is that the Maharashtra government has taken a decision. The Reserve Bank of India has also approached them. Governor has commented about it also in his two press conferences. And I think that is something that I think sooner or later they will take a decision. But I'm not too worried about it, frankly speaking. The issue here is that it is something that I think will correct over time. We have seen these situations happen several years ago. And, but at the end of the day, you can't wish away the fact that the private sector banks in the country have a, substantial and an increasing role to play in the broader economy. And therefore, they are active participants and they have a growing share of the market on both sides, on liabilities as well as assets. That is where the greater growth potential is. So for the sake of the country and the economy, this is something that will resolve. And I think it's restricted to one or two state governments. I think the others are fine. And that's fine as far as we are concerned. I don't think too much should be made out of that for the time being. It's a very short-term impact situation. And I think fundamentally, we have to see, how good the overall liquidity situation in the system and with the respective banks is. And from that point of view, we have stated time and again, we are very comfortable. If I take you back to the quarterly result commentary we made, we have said even at that time that we are maintaining significant excess liquidity. And I think that has come very handy, that even after, and at the end of the day, these are slightly higher cost bulk deposits. So in a sense, there is a silver lining in this fact that if you can live without them and your dependency on them is negligible, then frankly speaking, that makes for a much robust liability position for the bank, much more sustainable, much more reliable, and so on and so forth. And from that point of view, we are even now sitting on an LCR position of 127%. We are still sitting on excess liquidity, and we are extremely well capitalized. So, and the operating performance fundamentals of the bank, those metrics are extremely strong. And therefore, when you stack it all together, that by itself becomes a very isolated matter.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Ahuja. It's Karunya as well joining in the conversation. Just wanted to ask, Bandhan Bank has already started receiving deposits from its from government associates. What is the plan to make up the deposit fight that RBL lost to the government entities? Even if Mumbai Police or BMC switch their accounts, can be a huge swing for you, right?
No, I did not say that we do not want those deposits. I was just saying that the dependency on such deposits should not be the driving factor of your business or the sustainability of your overall deposit base. I think ultimately it's your retail deposit base. It's your franchise liability generation capacity. That is what should, on a sustainable basis, drive your business. That's the point I was making. And as far as the comment is concerned, there are at least 3-4 other state government organizations which continue to give us money. In fact, we have received some today also, a significant amount. So honestly, as I said, this was a bit of an aberration. It's not that they have shut shop or anything towards us. It's more restricted to a particular state, which is the state of Maharashtra, where such a so-called decision has been taken
And
for the time
talking
being.
about interests, will they be continued to be levied on accounts during the moratorium period? The subsequent cost of loans, will it, I think going by the estimate, it should shoot up by as much as 8 to 9% of loan value in longer tenure loans, right? So what is the additional NPA risk that comes out on back of this?
So we have EMI-based loans where these are not long-dated, long-tenor loans. And therefore, actually the math and the situation is very simple, that they will just, it's essentially in the most simplest form that for 3 months, the interest moratorium is there. And after that, in the 4th month, it has to be paid. And most of our loans are like that, which are short tenor loans. I mean, whether they are in micro banking or they're on the LAP loans that we have, or even in some of the credit card related EMIs that we have, it just pushes back by 3 months.
Mr. Ahuja, the question on everyone's mind right now, what will be the underlying health of borrowers in the system post an event like this?
So see, that's the big $1 million question right now. I mean, I'd be surprised if anybody can answer that question with a degree of conviction and and precision. The whole thing is that the way one would analyze this is to break it up into the more impacted sectors. While there are many sectors which are still, doing extremely well, and we know that. Particularly, for instance, when it comes to food, groceries, the pharmaceuticals, media, entertainment, I mean, stuff like that. I'm not talking about movie theaters and things like that, but I'm talking about online stuff. All that is doing well, and there are many other sectors which are still doing well, but there are some sectors which are impacted. So obviously, once again, I think the resultant impact will be determined by what level of exposure a particular financial institution has to the more sensitive, impacted, affected sectors. That's where it will come down to. And that's the exercise I guess all of us are doing, and doing on a real-time basis. And we all have some initial, if I may say, estimations. And again, we put that out in our commentary that nobody is trying to be complacent or overconfident at this time. But fortunately, when we stack up our portfolio, that our exposure to the so-called affected sectors or industries is quite small, actually, is very low. And that's a heartening fact, when you're dealing with a monumental challenge.
Look at the NIMs in your recent press release. They've been at an all-time high. Is this trend sustainable? Are these levels sustainable?
See, our NIMs have been going up for now several quarters, consistently, quarter on quarter, for several quarters. I don't have the exact, but certainly for the last 7-8 plus quarters. And we have always said that these high levels of NIMs are sustainable. So, I'm repeating that. In fact, even in this quarter, our overall income generation, which means net interest revenue plus other income, was higher than the previous quarter, which is the third quarter. So, in a very challenged economic environment, exacerbated by the COVID-19 situation and the lockdown and all the other effects that is happening, despite that, our revenue generating capacity of our franchise has not only held solid, but it is contributing even higher levels of revenue in the fourth quarter, which is why, it is resulting in an operating profit, net of operating expenses, which is at least equal to what we had in the previous quarter, is the statement we have put out. Okay, so this.
All right, Mr. Ahuja, many thanks for joining us once again and updating us about what's happening at RBL Bank. With that, we're going to slip into a short break right here. When we come back, there are more updates lined up.